Well, one of the major changes that I feel, just seeing the landscape of our marketplace today, that would affect, because it's affecting all of us, is the way and the modes by which nonprofits receive funding. So board members are going to have to start engaging themselves in the different methods upon which donations can come and contributions can come. We saw already how and this, I know this has been a few years ago, but the disruption of the recent presidential elections, how, crowdsourcing, funding things have contributed to different congressional leaders, even up until the president, gaining the capital resources that they needed to run their campaign. So that's like one of the differences that we need to all be aware of, and I think especially how nonprofits and board members engage the community concerning how donations are coming and what mediums they're coming through. So I think that's going to be one area that board members are going to have to adapt to, that's rapidly changing every single day, especially in the time we're living in right now. Well, we'd like that to be a common practice, but I don't think that is any rule. That's not a set rule or a best practice as of today, but it should be. Currently, what we see in a number of boards across the globe concerning, or I should say across the nation, concerning nonprofits, is that when a board member's tenure is up, they go ahead and they exit left and the other board member enters right. So what we need to probably start doing is maybe developing, and we have to do this individually as nonprofits, as board members of these different nonprofits that we're on, is to integrate a system that's not just looking at current benefits, current opportunities, current practices, but it's looking towards the future. How can we make the future of this organization better, even though I'm not going to be here, even though I'm not going to directly benefit from it? I believe in this nonprofit. I want this nonprofit to succeed, so I'm going to invest in the future of it. And that takes somebody keeping their eye on the goal of how do we improve now, but also the future. And one of those things is establishing and cultivating a mentorship program. Whereas if a board member tenure is 3 years, 4 years, maybe they start to integrate, start to orientate the new members maybe a year before, bringing them in on some of the meetings, mentoring them on how to direct different things, how to lead certain things, how to communicate with the community concerning different initiatives that the nonprofit wants to take, how to be the liaison. So just taking that person under your wing, for the position as treasurer, absolutely. Vice president, vice chair, all of those things, very important, secretary, all of those things would be benefited, those roles would be benefited by having a mentorship, mentee relationship with new board members coming in, so that the older board members, the existing board members that are leaving, don't take all of their knowledge and capital resources and intellectual capital with them, but they're sharing it so that the future of the organization thrives just like it thrives underneath their watch. The frequency, it depends on the nonprofit. It depends on the board, actually. You have some boards that do self-reviews every 6 months, and then normally it's like every year. But there's some board that they're big enough and they do a lot of things where they need to be reviewed more frequently than that. So it all depends on the activity of the board, what they're involved in, and the necessity of integrating change, improvements, synergies around their role, their function as an individual member, but also as a collective. So that would determine the frequency of it. The next part of that question, my experience on how frequent it should be and why. I would say every 6 months, I believe, is a good timetable. You know, every 6 months, every quarter. A year may be too long because the issue, the thing that you're trying to address, it may be gone. It may be out of sight, out of mind, and there's no capitalization, no learning, no developing the board itself so that the board can develop the nonprofit. The second piece to that, I gotta look back at the question right there. The second piece is the importance of the review. What do I find, what have I found to be important to a review? A number of things. I believe probably the one that's most significant to me is how we might and are directly impacting the performance of the nonprofit. So how is my behavior, my activity, my role as a board member influencing the productivity, the performance, and the overall improvement of the nonprofit itself? So when you review things like your oversight, how are you overseeing the activity of the nonprofit and what impact is that oversight having? Are you infecting or affecting change within the nonprofit that needs it? Or are you just looking and just letting it go and it is what it is kind of a thing? Or are you actively taking part in the active improvement and development of that nonprofit? So I'd like to be reviewed, and I think reviewing on points that target the end of the day goal is to improve the performance and the reach of a nonprofit in the community. And if the review is indicative of addressing issues that might improve the board member and board members by extension role and activity and oversight ability to improve the performance of the nonprofit, that's what I think a review should be based on. I think that should be the anchor of any review. So. Okay, so we just covered 3 of 4 recap questions. The 4th question actually that we're going to be going into is going to go more into depth in a certain area when it comes to membership and subscriptions. So we're going to cover that in its own separate video. So stand by or stay tuned for that.